Georgia Williams was born in Shropshire, England on the 7th of September 1995. She was an intelligent, caring, and bubbly girl. She had a loving and tight-knit home life and was incredibly close to her family. She lived with her father, Stephen, a police officer. Her mother, Lynette, and her older sister, Scarlett Georgia, was a student head girl at her school and was a cadet in the Air Training Corps, shopping one day to become a Royal Air Force paramedic. She loved playing sports and being outside, and there was nothing she wouldn't try, described as having an infectious personality and smile. She was a very popular 17-year-old who was adored by those who knew her as soon as she became old enough to work. Georgia took on a part-time job at a local petrol station and quickly made friends with her colleagues. Among this group of friends was 23-year-old Jamie Reynolds. He had been in her sister Scarlett's year at school and was a little older than Georgia. Her family had met him on an occasion working at the petrol station and described him as quiet and polite. Reynolds would develop a liking for Georgia, making his feelings very apparent. Although Georgia didn't share the same feelings and rejected his advances, it didn't deter her from spending time with him. She remained polite and friendly, Georgia being the person she was continued to spend time with. Reynolds and always made sure he was included. Having been bullied as a young girl, she knew the feeling of being an outcast all too well, and being the empath she was, never wanted to call someone the same pain. By ignoring them, Reynolds worked full-time at the petrol station and told Georgia he had a keen interest in photography and wanted to try and pursue it as a career, instead of what he was currently doing. Georgia encouraged him, as did all her friends, and offered to help wherever she could. He asked her if she wouldn't mind modeling for some photographs with the intent of using them in his portfolio, which she gladly agreed to do. They made a plan for her and some of her friends to go to Jamie's parents' house on May 26, 2013 for a photo shoot at around 7:30 p.m. Georgia left the family barbecue and headed out to meet Jamie and her friends, telling her family she will be back later, always responsible and reliable. Anna's, Jamie's house was only a few minutes away on foot. Her parents agreed a few hours later, and with no sign of Georgia, her mother Lynette sent her a text message asking her how everything was going and when they could be expecting her home. She got a message back saying that, although the photo shoot had finished, she would be staying with her friends for a while longer and didn't know when she would be home. She put her usual 3 kisses at the end of the message, the network up at around 6 a.m. on Monday morning, and went to check on her daughter. But upon seeing her bed untouched, she was concerned as to why she hadn't come home. She sent another message asking where she was, to which she received a response a few hours later saying that she had lost track of time, stayed at her friend's, and forgot to message to let her know. The message ended by saying, "My battery is dying too." This was not a common thing for Georgia to do. She didn't ever want to cause people to worry and never failed to let her family know where she was due to go to a music festival and take her first driving lesson, and her parents knew that missing those 2 things was a concerning sign. As it got to Tuesday morning, no one had heard anything from Georgia in almost 2 days. It was at this point that her parents really started to panic. They began to ring around her friends to see if she had stayed at their house overnight, but none of her friends had seen or heard from her. Her phone was now going straight to voicemail. Music. Her boyfriend Matthew made a desperate appeal on Facebook, and word quickly began to spread that she was missing. Parents went straight to the police. The only information they had was that she had spent her evening with Jamie Reynolds. When the police ran a quick routine background check on Reynolds, they immediately became concerned in 2008 when he was 17 years old. Reynolds was given a final warning for attempting to strangle a 16-year-old girl he had lured into false pretenses of helping her with a project. The youth offending team and mental health services made visits to Reynolds to assess the situation further. His parents had told the team he had an obsession with violent pornography and snuff films depicting rape and asphyxiation. They also said they had found several disturbing pictures of girls in school uniforms she had drawn over them and put nooses around their necks. The teams individually determined that they posed a significant risk, but unfortunately the police took no further action, believing the case had been, in their words, suitably resolved. A few years later, in 2011, Reynolds was put on the police radar once again, when he purposely ran into a colleague's car after she rejected him romantically, but as no checks were made at the time, the link to the 2008 case was not made using CCTV and number plate recognition. Reynolds and his van was spotted at a cheap hotel almost 300 miles away in Glasgow, Scotland. Worryingly, there was no sign of Georgia Williams. He was spotted in a car park making a quick change of clothes next to his van. Shropshire police contacted Police Scotland, and he was taken in for questioning. He maintained he knew nothing of George's whereabouts, but the police were not satisfied with this. With knowledge of his background, he was arrested and brought back to Shropshire for further questioning. But Reynolds was still saying nothing and denying all the allegations. The next morning, at around 5:30 a.m., senior police officers knocked on the Williams' front door. Her parents said that they instantly knew that their beautiful daughter was no longer alive. The team headed back to her last known location, the Reynolds house, to do a thorough and in-depth search. What? They stumbled upon a horrified event. The most experienced and tenured of officers, they found Reynolds' camera in the house that contained a memory card. It was clear that someone had tried to wipe what was on it. Fortunately for the officers, they hadn't succeeded, but with this, the horrific, sickening picture of what had happened to Georgia Williams began to unfold. The pictures showed that Georgia had been forced onto a box with a noose around her neck. Reynolds had kicked the box from under her and hanged her. She was photographed like this all over the house, and after he was done, he raped her dead body, which she also photographed. With this, Reynolds was charged, but he refused to tell them where George's body was. Detective Sergeant Hopwood, who was assigned to assist in the case, described him as someone playing games. The police began to formulate a timeline of Reynolds' movements in the days after George's disappearance, and CCTV would play a vital role in adding to their case. A day after Georgia went missing, he was spotted on camera filling up his van with fuel. Little did anyone know at the time, but Georgia was already dead, and her body was in the back of the van. After he killed her, he drove 60 miles to Wrexham in Wales, where he stopped to watch a film at a cinema. He watched one of the Fast and Furious films, the same movie he had been trying to persuade George to go and watch, with a music with Reynolds already in custody. The police asked the public for their help. Police say they urgently need information about a vehicle driven by the suspect. I'd like to concentrate the public's mind, please, on a vehicle, which is the vehicle I have to my left here. It's the highest van, Kick 06A. So the last time we identified that vehicle was at 5 o'clock in Wrexham in North Wales. Following that, we identified the vehicle at 10:30 p.m. that evening, so a gap of about 5.5 hours in Queensferry, Cheshire, heading north, and we're obviously very keen from the public. Anyone has information to identify where that vehicle may have been in that 5.5 hour gap. A number of people came forward to tell police they had in fact helped Reynolds at the side of the road when his van had gotten stuck. As soon as the police heard the location, they knew that they would soon find Georgia. On the 31st of May, 5 days after she'd gone missing, they found the body of Georgia Williams. She was naked and barely hidden in a woodland area near Wrexham. Jamie Reynolds was officially charged with murder. However, it was uncertain as to how he would plead in court. December 2, 2013, he appeared at Stafford Crown Court. George's father, Stephen, said he watched Reynolds before he entered the courtroom as he laughed and joked, showing no remorse or care for the destruction he'd caused. But before he entered the courtroom, his demeanor quickly changed to almost meek and childlike. Jamie Reynolds pled guilty to murder, much to the relief of George's family. On December 19th, he was given the harshest sentence possible under British criminal law, a whole life order, meaning he would never be released from prison. Became one of the youngest people in British criminal history to receive this sentence. Mr. Justice Wilkes said, "The sentence I pass on is one of life imprisonment. The early release provisions are not to apply to you. I make a whole life order." Reynolds appealed his sentence in 2014, but the Court of Appeal said there was no possible way a whole life order could be argued against, and the sentence was just his appeal was flatly denied. An investigation into how Jamie Reynolds' previous attacks on women were handled by the police was carried out, and subsequently 6 police officers from the West Mercia police were served with misconduct notices regarding the 2008 case. The memory of Georgia Williams was honored by the local community as they raised more than £2,000 for a memorial bench to be made for her. Her family also started the Georgia Williams Trust, a charity which helps young people pursue their passions and dreams with the help of grants and partnerships. A fitting tribute for the passionate, vibrant, and spirited Georgia Williams.